Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine you had a near-death experience. What would you expect to see? Today, we're going to break down this wild story from a teen who says he went to the afterlife. And what he found there, well, it wasn't what anyone expected. It really challenges the whole idea of what it means to be saved.
I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. What if getting into heaven wasn't as simple as checking a box for what you believe? What if it was more like leveling up a character in a video game, where your choices and your actions are the things that actually matter? That's the huge idea we're unpacking here.
So let's meet our main character, a teenager named Evan. He has this near-death experience, and he says he visited hell. But here's the shocker. One level he saw was packed, completely full of people who were lifelong, totally dedicated believers.
Yeah, this is Evan's friend Abby, and she's basically asking the question that's on all of our minds, right? How in the world could people who were so certain they were saved end up in hell? It just doesn't compute. But according to Evan's story, there's a pretty specific reason why.
So Evan describes this scene, right? It's this massive, deep pit. And the people in it, they aren't being tortured or anything like that. They're just there, stuck. All of them are just staring up at this little pinprick of light, just passively waiting for someone to come rescue them. So here's the reason Evan gives, and it's a big one. Just believing wasn't enough. He said all their unresolved baggage, grudges they held, bad habits, being obsessed with stuff, all that stuff acted like magnets, literally weighing their souls down. They never did the work to build up what he calls a mystic bank account, which is basically a spiritual savings account built from good deeds and actually working on yourself.
And this really gets to the heart of the conflict in this whole story. It's this massive clash between two completely different mindsets, waiting for somebody else to come save you versus taking responsibility for your own spiritual journey.
So when Evan actually talks to these people, they're basically like, excuse me? There's been a huge mistake. They are 100% convinced that their deal was that a savior would just come and wipe away all their spiritual baggage for them. They thought it wasn't their job to clean up their own mess.
But Evan's response just flips that whole idea on its head. He tells them, look, the vibe, the energy you put out into the world when you were alive, that's all on you, and you're the only one who can clean it up. It's this radical idea of total personal responsibility.
Now, to explain why they're so completely paralyzed, Evan uses this really intense metaphor. He says their souls are being ripped apart in a constant tug-of-war, pulled by a pair of massive bulls.
Okay, so check this out, because this image really explains the problem. On one side, you've got the fantasy bull. This is the part of them that's just clinging to the belief that they get a free pass to paradise. Then on the other side, you've got the human bull, and that's all their ego, their pride, their attachment to earthly things, and all their negative habits. With these two huge forces pulling in opposite directions, their soul is just stuck, completely paralyzed.
So you're probably thinking, okay, that sounds awful. Why not just let go of the ropes? It seems like the obvious answer, right? But for these souls, it is nowhere near that simple.
Well, here's the trap. They've been taught their whole lives that this struggle is the only way. They believe that holding on for dear life to both of these bulls is their ticket to eternal glory, and that if they let go, they risk eternal torment. So they're clinging to the very thing that's keeping them trapped.
So this whole internal battle is held in place by what Evan calls the triune doctrine. You can just think of it as a perfect three-part belief system that keeps them stuck right where they are.
It's really a 1-2-3 punch. First, they're terrified because they think they have nowhere else to go. Second, their souls are just too heavy with all their baggage. And third, they've been totally disempowered, convinced they're too weak to save themselves. Let's break that down real quick. So the first part of the trap is just this crippling fear of the unknown. They were always told that a place would be prepared for them, so they never bothered to build their own spiritual home, They spent their entire lives waiting, not creating.
Next up, their souls are described as literally heavy. Imagine trying to float with a backpack full of rocks. That's kind of what it's like. All those unresolved issues, addictions, grudges, earthly desires, they aren't just ideas. In this story, they have actual weight, and they're anchoring these souls down.
And the final piece of the trap, they've been completely disempowered. They were taught that only one special savior could perform miracles or create real change. So by giving away all their own personal power, they've become too weak to even think about climbing out themselves. They're just stuck there, waiting.
So, after seeing all of this, Evan presents them with the one and only way out. It all boils down to a choice. A really stark, difficult choice that challenges everything they've ever believed.
But back in the real world, his friend Abby is not having it. She completely rejects Evan's story. She's like, nope, I object. My truth is different. All believers go to heaven. And it's a powerful reminder of just how deep these kinds of beliefs can run.
But Evan's warning to the souls in that pit is, honestly, it's chilling. He tells them, if you choose to just keep waiting, you might be waiting for all eternity. The choice couldn't be clearer. Stay trapped by your old beliefs or take a chance on a totally new path.
So what is that escape hatch? Evan calls it self-mastery, and it's a total game changer. He tells them they have the option to be reincarnated, to actually go back to Earth. But this time, their mission wouldn't be to just believe something. It would be to actively work on themselves, to develop wisdom, to practice things like compassion and forgiveness, and to build their own spiritual power, instead of waiting for a handout.
And this might be the most stunning part of the entire story. Evan presented this choice, this escape plan, to literally millions of souls. And do you know how many chose to leave? A few hundred. That's it. It just shows you how incredibly powerful a belief system can be, even when it's the very thing keeping you trapped.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? The message of the story is pretty clear. Your afterlife isn't some reward or punishment based on what you say you believe. Instead, it's a direct reflection of the inner world that you built for yourself while you were alive. You go to the place you yourself have created.
And that leaves us with one last question, a big one for you to think about. Whether you believe this story is real or just a metaphor, it makes you wonder, if your thoughts, your actions, and your beliefs are constantly building the reality you will one day live in, who's really in charge of creating your afterlife?